Okay, welcome everyone. I am Jen Goday and I am here with David Kirkwood, and we're just going to get started with building confidence, silencing the inner critic to powerfully move forward. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Well, I'm going to let David go ahead and talk about our big why.
So many of you know me, some may not. So I am an engineering manager in oil and gas. I have over 15 years in industrial project experience, about 10 years in leadership in multiple industries. Why am I doing this? I've lived through 3 downturns. I have been personally let go before. I've been on the other side as well. And this time it's a really bad downturn. I just feel compelled to give back. I want to give back to our community. I really enjoy working with engineers. It's one of my passions in life. And this is an avenue I found that we can give back. And so not only with this workshop, which is the 4th week that we've been giving a free workshop, we have 2 additional weeks of free workshops that we'll be giving as well. And if you stick around to the end, we'll tell you about some of the other offerings that we have.
Right, so today is all about building confidence. Why did we choose this topic? Well, for starters, we chose this topic because when we have crisis or disruption, as we have seen not only with the pandemic and the social unrest and all the things that are happening in our world, but also coinciding with an oil and gas downturn, we've seen millions and millions of people losing their jobs over the course of the last couple of months. And what that does is even the most confident amongst us takes a little bit of a hit when things like this are happening. We as human beings really appreciate routine. We are creatures of habit. And as such, our confidence builds as we're able to continue to successfully participate in our lives. When we find that things are outside of our control, many times the inner game of confidence takes a little bit of a hit. So after providing some content over the last few weeks about how to network to find your next opportunity, interviewing skills and one-on-one skills, how to effectively communicate, self-leadership, how to have presence, some of those things, we just felt that building confidence was a critical next step. And just as we discussed, for those of you who joined a little early, if you have something to write with, this is going to be a very interactive session. Why? Because confidence is an inner game. A lot of things can be done on the outside. A lot of action steps can happen that can help us to build confidence, but the real crux of confidence happens internally. And so having something to write down will be very, very, very powerful for you in this session. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's keep things moving. So like we said, a little bit about us. Wanted to share with you just how you can reach out to us. So some folks in here may have been getting emails. This is really the best way to reach out to us. David at jengodaycoaching.com, jengoday at jengodaycoaching.com. So if you're interested in really just having a 20-minute one-on-one about your personal situation, we are happy to do that with you, but we need to schedule it. Also wanted to put out, which we'll talk about later, our first group coaching will be this coming Thursday, June the 25th, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're curious about what that's about, email us. We'll have some more detail as we get into the meeting. So without further ado, let's talk about why. Why do we want to focus on building confidence? So just a couple of things. Have you ever perseverated on a thing for hours or for days? By building confidence, you will shift your focus away from that one thing that you went over in your mind over and over and over again, which what will happen is you'll allow space. And what you can do with that space is it will deepen empathy with others when your focus is not always on yourself. So we are in the worst downturn in recorded history, over a century, since the stock market crash in the late 20s, and oil and gas is the worst it's been. We have a virus going on. We have a very emotionally tense situation in our society right now. There's a lot of things going on. And so think about that. Listen, are you hearing the tone of my voice? Are you hearing fear, or are you hearing concern in my voice? So the answer is no. And the reason for that is because I continually and persistently do inner game work in order to keep my confidence up. Confidence is not something that you have. It's not something that you hold in your hands, which Jen will go into a little bit more detail later. Confidence is a constant state of becoming. It is a state of being. So we'll see that in a little bit. When you're confident, you overcome what we call analysis paralysis. So myself as a technical professional, as an engineer, we tend to love to solve problems, don't we? But we'll overanalyze things and get into this pattern where we become indecisive. By becoming more confident, you will increase your risk-taking. And by increasing your risk-taking, you will speed your decision-making, which is a great benefit. It'll decrease over-criticism of yourself as well as others, which will help you build relationships. And inherently, you will view relationships more positively.
All right, so what is all this talk about confidence? Confidence as an inner game. Am I not born with confidence? No, confidence is actually a skill set and a habit, and it comes from the way we speak to ourselves internally. So let's dive into our inner critic right quick. Remember we talked to you about grabbing your pen and paper? Now is exactly the time when you're gonna want this, because we're gonna go through some of these things. So for those of you who do not know me, I am currently a business strategist and a mindset coach. I come from 20 years in the sports medicine industry working with elite athletes, professional and Olympic level athletes. And when we think about what separates the confident elite athlete, the confident elite CEOs and leaders of our businesses, the confident elite leaders in our communities, in our organizations, what separates them from the rest is the constant inner work, continually upgrading. I like to call our brand like our own operating system. I'm gonna liken this to the Apple iPhone, right? So the iPhone is continually upgrading its systems. Why? Because the software needs to upgrade in order to be able to continue to optimally perform. Confidence is exactly like that. When we're talking about the process of becoming, we're talking about every time life throws us a curveball, we're doing the inner work and upgrading our operating system so we can respond. That is what confidence is. That is what elite athletes do. They don't perseverate on the, oh my goodness, this is out of my control. So-and-so competitor did so much better than me, that compare and despair, wrong answer. When we're thinking about confidence, we need to look internally, and we need to look at ourselves. The only person we are competing with is ourselves. Regardless of what anyone else does, regardless of any situation, pandemic, downturn, what have you, our inner game is what defines how we show up. If you missed our last couple of workshops, we went into detail about presence, commanding respect, communication, and ways to set yourself apart when you're looking for your next opportunity or hoping to elevate or progress in your career path, or even if you're looking to go into business for yourself. Well, today we're gonna dive into that inner critic. So I'm gonna just go through a couple of things that maybe might have happened to go through your mind at some point in time. And I want you just to have an open mind with this process. Maybe you're wondering, is it normal to lack confidence even though I've had 25 years of success in my career path? Is it normal to not feel confident even though other people perceive me as confident? What if they knew that inwardly I feel like a fraud or an imposter? From the outside looking in, I'm the picture of success. I maybe have climbed to the subject matter expert in my industry. I'm well known. Everybody comes to me for advice or to learn something. But inside I'm wondering, well, I just lost my job. Am I really that good? Am I good enough to get another job or to make a pivot? So perhaps you are perceived in a way that you don't feel inwardly, and that is actually common. I want to share with you that every person on the planet has fear. Fear is a part of the human experience. But when we perseverate on the inner critic and all the I'm not good enough, if only they knew I didn't know X, Y, and Z, what if someone found out that I have to actually Google this or go to the code book to learn what I need to do for this project? What if somebody knew? Guess what? The big lie that we all tell ourselves is when I know everything, I'm going to feel more confident. When I have this certification, this degree, this job description, this amount of money, then I'm going to be confident. It's complete BS. Confidence is an inner game. And if you think about when I have X, then I'm going to feel confident, you will never arrive. You will never have enough. There will always be the next thing that you're going to feel insecure about. Confidence is a mindset. It's about confronting your inner critic and celebrating yourself as is, accepting yourself as is. That means I don't know anybody. I don't know everything. I'm human. No human being knows everything. Even the most expert authority in any subject matter doesn't know everything. What sets them apart and their confidence comes from really understanding what they know and being willing to say, you know, I don't know that, but I'm going to get that answer for you. Let me get back with you. That is the mindset of confidence. So no matter what your achievements are, if you're relying on achievements to fill that I'm not good enough hole, it's not going to happen. What we're going to do is we're going to adapt the way we speak to ourselves, our self-talk, our inner critic. We're going to transform that inner critic today into your inner supporter so that the outer game will show. When you walk into a room, when you sit across the table with a recruiter, when you sit across the table at an interview, you present yourself with an air of confidence. The outer game plus the marriage of the inner game is what's really going to move you forward. So how do we do this? How do we hold ourselves and give the picture of confidence if inside we're thinking, well, I'm not good enough. What if they don't see me as this person? You guys wouldn't show up and listen to us if I was that and I was leaned back and I was hovering inside myself. So the first part is the outer game. Hold yourself with presence. Roll your shoulders back. Make eye contact with the person in front of you. Speak with authority and know yourself. So that presence and that energy starts with how we fuel our body, how we carry ourselves. Do we have a smile? Are we willing to share vulnerably? Because those things allow us to have that outer presence and that energy that commands respect initially, even if we don't feel it inwardly. And now here's where we get your pen and paper out. We're going to work on the analysis of your inner critic and work on the inner game. So I'm here to ask you, what is it that your inner voice says to you? Write it down. Does it say, if only I said this, then I would have gotten the results? If only I had thought to do X, Y, and Z, then I would have had a better outcome? If people only knew that I didn't know what I was talking about, what would they think? What does your inner voice say to you? How do you beat yourself up? Write it down, because the first step to gaining confidence and changing your inner critic into your biggest supporter is to know and have awareness around what your inner voice is saying. Next, what does your inner critic keep you from doing? And this is the time to be raw and real with yourself. I know you may be thinking, hey, this chick doesn't know me, like this is woo-woo stuff. Let me promise you that this is what is the most effective leaders in the world do. They write down what their issues are, what their inner critic says, and they write down what's being held back so they draw awareness so they can find the solution to their problem. So it does not make us weak to acknowledge these things. It actually shows strength and helps us turn that critic into a powerful supporter that gives us unshakable confidence no matter what's happening in the world. So what does your inner critic keep you from doing? Has it ever kept you from asking for that raise you feel you deserve? What about that promotion? Has it kept you from leaving a job because you're worried about what other people think? Have you always wanted to move into a different profession and not because everyone around you says, you're crazy for wanting to do this? Why would you give up such a prestigious career and such a great salary in order to do that other thing? What does your inner critic keep you from doing? And finally, when you hear your inner critic, what do you make that voice, what that voice is saying, mean about you?
So Jen, can you go into a little bit more about that last statement? What do you make it mean about you? Do you have a particular example that you could share?
Absolutely. So I'm so glad you asked. When we have that inner voice in our head, that inner voice can either be empowering or disempowering. Empowering are things that make us feel like, yes, I'm up for the game. I'm ready to go. I'm going to go ask for the job that I want. I'm going to negotiate what I want and need across the table versus, maybe I'm going to undersell myself and I'm going to accept the bare minimum because I want to make sure I get this job and I don't want to be without a job. So I'll give you a perfect example. When your inner critic is telling you, you know what? How dare you ask for that promotion? You should feel lucky to have a job right now because we're in the worst downturn in a century. What are you making that mean about yourself? You might be making it mean that, oh, I'm not good enough to have that raise. I'm not good enough to advocate for that position that I deserve. Maybe you're making it mean that you don't deserve to take care of your basic needs.
So how do you then, if you're hearing that kind of story and you're in the process of changing it, but you're hearing that story, what is a way to stop it? How would you stop that or change the story?
Right, so that would be a pattern interrupt, and we're actually going to go into that in the action steps. So y'all stay tuned because we are going to go through the exact process of how to stop that inner critic and shift it. But for now, we just need to know, what is your inner voice saying? What is your inner critic keeping you from doing? And when you hear it, what are you making it mean about yourself? So
do you guys have the answers to those three questions? They're going to be relevant as we get to the live visualization coming up momentarily. So the next thing we want to talk about, many of us in here have some sort of to-do list where maybe you start on a Monday morning and the first thing when you're getting to start your work week, or if it's your job search week, you're starting to write down things that you need to get done. Maybe you prioritize them. So I'd like to use that concept of a list for a stop and start list. And so take your pen and get maybe a clean sheet of paper if you already have some notes written down. And I want you to create two columns as it's broken out here. You have a stop side on this kind of left-hand side and a start side on the right-hand side, and make two columns. So I've made some suggestions here and I'll explain them just a little bit. So let's start on the stop side. So this says stop comparing and despairing. So what does that mean? Again, kind of with the stories we tell ourselves from the inner critic, do you find yourself saying, oh my gosh, look at the neighbors. They're getting ready to go on this nice Hawaiian vacation and I'm stuck at the house and we're not doing all these things. Or Joe over there just bought this new convertible car and I'm still driving my Hyundai Elantra. Are you telling yourself this? Are you focusing on what others are doing? That is comparing and despairing. Stop doing that. Instead, focus on what you have that others do not have. So for example, I just had a granddaughter. I was able to feed her and she fell asleep in my arms the other day. And I'm so happy to have a new family member in my life. See how easy that is? Another stop. Stop stress language. Have you ever caught yourself using these terms? I will try to get that done. I really should go and get that thing done. I need to finish this today right now. Those words need to, really have to, try to do are evidence of stress language. So what can you do there? Replace your stress language. Instead of saying, I will try to do this, say, I will do this. Commit to the action. And so if you're thinking in your mind, well, I cannot commit to that action because of something, think of how you can break that action into smaller steps so that you can get it done. And then when you start getting things done that you're committing to yourself, you can celebrate it and make it a behavior over time.
I'm really curious. Does stress language, is stress language how you speak to yourself inside your mind? Does that correlate with your inner critic?
It absolutely does. How many times do you vocalize to someone, maybe you're in a hurry, and then you say, no, I really need to finish packing this bag. I need to get this done right this very minute. How many times are you telling that to yourself as you're going through your workday? I need to reach out to this person, but I'm not sure if I can do it. I need to do this thing. I'll try to get that done, but I'm not really sure if I'll have the ability to do that. And so just that language is influencing, you're thinking the thought, it's influencing your beliefs and then your actions. So you're actually really reinforcing a lack of confidence in yourself by using that language.
Thanks.
So let's talk about a start list. So these are things we need to stop. What can we start doing? And as we're talking through these things, be thinking of your own stops, your own starts. These are really just conversation starters. So start asking for feedback. Find 3 people whom you trust, who you know will give you honest and open feedback, and ask for it that way. How did you think I handled that meeting the other day? Please be brutally honest. I'm reprioritizing my personal development, and I want to get better. By being honest, by having a person that you trust share the feedback with you, you'll learn the thing that you need to prioritize for your personal development. Not only that, you'll start to grow a thicker skin, right? As you get used to doing this. It will be uncomfortable at first if you've not done this before. But anything that you do that starts as being uncomfortable, after a period of time, after being persistent and consistent with it, it becomes normalized. Another thing on your start list, start your right circle. So we're not talking about, drawing a circle on a piece of paper. We're talking about with whom you surround yourself. Are you surrounding yourself with people who are influencing you to become more and better? Or are you surrounding yourself with people who are very negative, very critical, and are stopping you from getting where you'd like to go? There's a term that Jen and I use. It's called find your 4th grader. Find the person who is just ahead of you, who you know, or find someone who knows a person who's like that and spend more time in that circle. By spending time with the people who are just ahead of us, we'll start to modify our behaviors to become more like them. Not only that, is they will have positive influence on us, and you can do that by stopping and spending less time with people who are negatively influencing.
Why is this so important? I mean, why can't I hang out with the people who are still doing the things from 20 years ago and still constantly struggling from day to day?
I think it ties into support and accountability. If you are it's hard enough to get self-motivated to start making new things a behavior. Why put yourself in a situation where someone, or maybe many someones, are telling you you cannot do the thing? Eventually, you may allow them permission to stop you. Do not allow the negative people in your life to stop you from chasing your dreams. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of others better.
We've talked about this extensively in some of our other conversations and workshops. If there's people who are very close to you and they are the people who are holding you back because they're saying, oh, you're not good enough to do that, or you don't know enough to do that, If those are the people who are saying those things and they're reinforcing your negative voice in your head, it might be a family member, and it might be a spouse or a partner, and that's okay. We're not saying you need to cut them out of your life. They just get their chair tucked in when you're talking about your self-development and your growth towards confidence. We can share certain things with our family, for example, but there's some things that we just don't discuss with them. And part of that for us, in fact, might be about our business, because maybe our members of our family don't understand some of the choices that we make, because we are in business for ourselves as opposed to having a salary. So whenever we look at our circle, we might have different tables. There might be a table for your career where you want to be. The fourth grader example is, if you're a third grader and you think back to grade school, or maybe you have children or grandchildren who are in grade school, fourth grade is when everybody kind of hits that growth spurt. So when you're a third grader, you're here and everybody's a whole head taller than you. And all of a sudden, all you want to be is that fourth grader, because, wow, they're so cool. And look at all the things they're able to do, because this is when they get better at sports. Like, all kinds of things start to happen, and there's that big gap. So when you're looking at developing a skill set, your table that we're talking about, your community, that right circle, is with regards to what you're trying to build. And it might be that some people that we care very deeply about, and it might even be a family member, are not supportive of our growth because they might feel left behind. That's their own stuff, and we can't impact that. So what we do is we just tuck in their chair and we have them sit at the next table for a little while. We still love them through that process, but we're able to surround ourselves by people who are going to help us grow in our profession. So remember how we talked about the inner critic, and we journaled about what are the things that our voice says to what are the things we say to ourselves in the quiet of our minds? What are the things that we keep ourselves from doing because of our inner critic? Maybe not asking for the job we want or the promotion, maybe not asking for the money, maybe not showing up the way we want to do or standing up for ourselves. We're going to take those now, and I want you to just take a look at them. What are the things that your inner critic says to you? And I want you to focus on those, and we're going to do a visualization exercise. Now, before you go, wait a minute, I don't know, this is kind of kooky, or I don't want to do this. Every elite person on earth, whether they are in any given industry, the leaders of the world all use mental rehearsal and visualization to impact their success. It is a proven technique to enhance learning and to enhance your growth. So we're going to do this today. And if you don't ever want to do it again, fine, but please be open-minded to this. What are the things that your inner critic says? And if it's easier for you to visualize by closing your eyes, feel free to close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. And I want you to focus on those inner critic voices. You're not good enough. You don't know enough. Who are you to XYZ? Those inner critic things, I want you to first imagine that there's some stranger off the street who you've never met, who's on your shoulder saying, you don't deserve this. Who the heck are you to ask for the job that you want? And just imagine that stranger telling you that every second of the day. Would you let them continue to walk with you? No, you would tell them to buzz off. You may be very nice about it, or it might be a little bit more vehement. Now what I want you to do is I want you to visualize a child that you care about, a young child, maybe preschool age. This could be you when you were a child. This could be a child or a grandchild of your own, someone in your family, or it could be just a random child. But I want you now to visualize yourself telling that child, you're not good enough. Why don't you know everything? How the heck can you expect me to want to work with you or hire you when you don't deserve this? Does that child deserve those statements? Use your inner voice, your inner critic. You're not good enough. You're too quiet. You're too introverted. You're not assertive enough. You're not smart enough. Why did you do XYZ? You should have. Tell that child those things that you tell yourself. And ask yourself, what did that child do to deserve hearing those words? What is that child making those words mean? Children are there. They're exploratory, they're curious, they're trying to make sense of the world, and all that children actually want is to make people around them smile, and they want to be loved and supported, and they want to be curious and to learn and grow. How can we speak to a child in the way we speak to ourselves? We would never. That child doesn't deserve this. And what does that child make it mean? That child might internalize this and make it mean that they're not good enough. Maybe they don't deserve to live. Maybe they don't deserve to be in this family or in this situation. So the next time that your inner critic pops up, I want you to imagine that child and say those words to that child and ask, does the child deserve to hear this? Because that inherently is where our inner critic came from. Our inner critic came from things that we picked up and we perceived when we were very young, and they continue to evolve since the time that we were children. So if we wouldn't tell a child that, why would we tell ourselves that? This allows us to kind of move forward and to start making it mean something else. Think about the last time that you saw a movie and the mother in the movie told her child, don't eat that, you're gonna be fat. I know that's absolutely ridiculous, but the mom said that not because she wanted the child to feel like they were gonna be fat or they were doing something wrong. In the movie, she was saying that because she only cared about that child fitting in at school. She had a positive intention behind that criticism. So if you think about your inner critic has a positive intention behind every single thing that your inner critic says. You might be like me. My inner critic is very hard on me. Why did you say that thing? How could you have delivered that? Why didn't you say X, Y, or Z? If only you had done this, you would have been able to do something different. The positive intention behind my inner critic is, if I continually beat myself up, maybe I will continue to grow and push myself to achieve. But the reality is, while that worked somewhat in my early stages of my career, once I got to the point where I was seen as an expert, that inner critic held me back, because then I was beating myself up and it was actually inhibiting my confidence. So what is the positive intention behind the words that you use with yourself? And then this is this challenging part. Thank your inner critic. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for telling me I don't know enough, because I'm going to go out and learn about this particular new change to the code, to the NEC if you're an engineer, whatever. But thank that inner critic for driving you forward and say, you know what? This is not how I want to speak to myself anymore. How do we change the message from disempowering and critical to empowering and supportive? We train ourselves. How we speak to ourselves is a habit. It's a habit we've been in since we were children, and how we interrupt that and we begin to change it to an empowering message is, first we decide, how do we want to be supported by the voice inside our head? How do we want to be, what do we want to be said? And we have to have a pattern interrupt. So if you're in your head and the things are going, the voices are going, you're not good enough, I can't believe this, you don't deserve to ask for that raise or that promotion, you don't deserve to sit across the table, why would they hire me over somebody else who has more experience or who's in that industry? Stop, have a pattern interrupt. Something, it could be physical. I'll give you an example. Some of my clients, they take a rubber band and they wear that. And anytime they're in that train of thought, they literally pop themselves, because that physical pop brings them out of their head and into their body. For myself, I'm a very kinesthetic person. When I'm in my head, I imagine an old school, and I'm dating myself now, the record scratch. And then I ask myself, but did you die? And I take a breath. And I'm like, nope, still here. Obviously, I didn't die. So the worst case scenario didn't happen, right? And I find that very funny. It may not be humorous to you, and that's okay. But this is what works for me. The record scratch in my ears, and visualizing the whole thing, and then asking myself, did I die, and taking a breath. I've gotten out of that pattern of negative thinking and into humor. If you can find something humorous, it's a great pattern interrupt, because you can laugh about it. And then the next part is key. Insert the empowering message that you want to hear. I am good enough. I do deserve the job that I want. I do deserve to make money. I do deserve to be sitting at this table. I am good enough. I know enough. So the pattern interrupt is key. And let's finally start with giving grace to ourselves, because our inner voice is a habit. Research shows that it takes 6 weeks to break a bad habit and 6 weeks to form a new one. So you are looking at 90 days of consistent pattern interrupts. Whether you choose to have something physical, whether you just decide you're gonna put a rubber band and pop yourself to get yourself out of your head, whether it's the next time you're in your head, you're gonna go move your body, you're gonna walk outside and take a couple deep breaths, you're gonna go for a walk around the block. Whatever it is you do to interrupt yourself, start now. Make the decision, write it down, what are you gonna do?
So I wrote this down, Jen. I wrote down listening to you. I wrote down, when I hear my inner critic, I will blank as a pattern interrupt. So you guys write that down right now. Take just 1 minute. Maybe as you were listening to Jen, you had kind of an idea. When I hear my inner critic, I will what? And whatever that is. Because as Jen said, you are going to have a technique that resonates personally for you and may not be the one that Jen had just recommended.
Absolutely. So your pattern interrupt, and then commit to practicing this every day. And then fill in the blank with, what do you want to hear? Make it one succinct statement so that you can just have an affirmation. And we talked about affirmations in a previous session, a previous workshop. But what do you want to hear from the voice inside your head? I am good enough. I do deserve this. I can do this. Use powerful language. I will go out and get my next job. I will be successful. I will see this career advancement. Whatever it is that you want to hear, write that down. And this becomes a practice. And with everything, habits take time. We will not beat ourselves up because we catch ourselves in our head for 3 hours. That's okay. The first step is awareness. Becoming aware of our self-talk, becoming aware of what triggers the negative self-talk, and then focusing on your 1% improvement each day. And that might be, okay, I'm gonna practice this pattern interrupt. And my goal is to be that I'm gonna do the pattern interrupt 3 out of the next 7 days, because none of us are perfect. But set that goal, and what is your 1% improvement, so that you can start to interrupt the negativity, interrupt the self-criticism, and then deliver the empowering message.
So life loves you. Why don't you? Think about that. So some action steps, silencing your inner critic. Write this down. I will celebrate myself by verbalizing acceptance of self as is 3 days a week for the next 60 days. The acceptance, the silencing of your inner critic, remember, does not require you to obtain something. You do not need to achieve something. You have the power to make this shift right now, but it will take a little bit of work to make it a behavior so that you then normalize this process. A stop and start list. You have the start of one in your hands right now. I will become aware of when I compare and despair, and I will then refocus on what I do have that others do not have. And I will do this 4 times next week. Always, when we are developing our actions and our coaching steps, they are SMART actions: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, so that we have a demonstrated progress that we can celebrate small successes to continue to normalize. I will ask for honest and brutal feedback from 3 people next week, and we'll write out a 3-page development plan by the end of the following week. So find 3 people that you trust. Ask for that open, honest feedback, and write down what they say to reprioritize how you will develop moving forward. And then Jen, did you want to talk about the visualization?
I will, but I am very amused. I will become aware of when I compare and will refocus 4 times. This is such an engineer metric. I love the key performance indicators.
Always about the statistics.
So just interjecting a little humor in there, but I do want to make a comment about the compare and despair. That comes when we're looking externally at things, but what is important to note is that every single thing that we have in our experience right now is based off of choices that we made. You may have sat in this and listened to this. You may have been through some of our other workshops. And if you notice, everything that we are asking you to do is to make a choice. How are you going to show up moving forward? By making that choice, you are deciding how your tomorrow will look. And so compare and despair happens because people made other choices. Your neighbor may have chosen to get a different house or a car, whereas you choose travel. We all choose how we want to experience. And so when we're comparing and despairing, not only are we judging ourselves, but actually we're judging others. And so this is a great opportunity to examine the choices you made that got you to today, and what is the choice you're going to do to get you to the desired tomorrow. And so that really is why we have the metrics around what we have and the action steps that we have, because what we're encouraging you to do during this time is to make the choice that's going to set yourself up for success in your definition of success, not anyone else's, for your tomorrow. And finally, visualization. We did a visualization today. We visualized maybe our child version of ourselves or a child that we care about. Maybe your action step is to visualize that child and visualize yourself giving encouraging words that are going to be more positive and supportive moving forward. So if visualization was challenging for you, I get it. It's definitely a practice. It was very hard for me when I started. It's very hard for a lot of people, but it is just like everything else. Practice the things that are uncomfortable. And after you do them 5 to 10 times, they're no longer uncomfortable. Confidence is exactly the same way. Regardless of which action step you choose, whether it's to celebrate yourself, good, bad, and ugly, everything that you love and hate about yourself exactly as you are, whether it's to have a stop doing list, or to do a visualization, whatever you choose, the pattern interrupt, whatever your action step is, choose the one that's a little bit uncomfortable. Because many times the thing that is most uncomfortable is the needle mover. The thing that's gonna move the needle from 0 to 60 the quickest and get us moving towards our confidence. I cannot stress this enough. Choose the thing that is uncomfortable. Don't choose the easy thing. If it's easy for you to ask for honest and brutal feedback from 3 people, but you know you've done this and you've never taken action on it, don't choose that action step. Pick something that's uncomfortable for you, because that's generally our gut instinct and our intuitive self saying, hey, this is where your work is. That's where you need to do your work. Pick the thing that's a little bit uncomfortable.
So support and accountability, something to enhance what you're doing. Reach out to somebody in this meeting. You may not know all the folks in this meeting, but we've got a very interesting mix of people in the room right now. Find out and say, hey, I want to introduce myself. Would you be willing to be my accountability partner for this action item over the next several weeks? Reach out to us, email us. If there was something that resonated for you, even if it's just one thing, email us. Happy to have a 20-minute conversation to help getting you on your way. So also, if you notice something, or if you have questions in the next few minutes, we're going to be answering your questions live. So if you would take some time, if you've written down some notes through the course of this, type in your questions and put them through the group chat right now. So some upcoming workshops. To conclude this particular series, the next week's one will be effective communication, body language, get to the point and ask for what you need. So a lot of the communication we talked about here was very much auditory. You're talking to yourself or read, write, you're writing things down. Body language is a very effective way that we communicate. And you can use body language to set your inner game as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that next week.
Did you know that language is only 7% what the words you're saying? 93% of your communication comes from body language, tone, and presence. So if you are not keyed into this, if you don't find that people listen to you when you speak, or that you have trouble verbalizing and getting to the point, or even asking for the support you need, don't miss next week.
And as a precursor, I'm also a John Maxwell certified coach. Highly recommend John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. Very good book to focus on communication and how do you connect with people better. And if there's an interest in learning about that topic even more, we can talk about some workshops that cater to John Maxwell's content. And then the 6th week is leadership, the power of others, letting go of control, and self-mastery.
And of course, if you missed the previous weeks, we did networking externally and internally to find your next opportunity. We talked about effective one-on-one and interviewing skills, and we talked about self-leadership.
We also talked about building relational capital and how to network in this environment and more.
If you missed those, be sure to reach out to us, because we will be more than happy to send that information to you and to send you the links to those other workshops.
So join our group coaching starting this week. We'll have our very first group coaching session. It will be this Thursday, June the 25th, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. The conversation starter will be on time management and prioritization. It's $25 per person. Since this is a starting group, it will be practically like getting one-on-one coaching. Both Jen and I's clients see a 10x or even 100x return on investment for the money. And who is not a better place to invest than in yourself? Investing in yourself and putting skin in the game will just put that extra emphasis that you will stick with your personal development plan. So if you'd like to learn more about that or hear more about that, email us at myself at david@jengodecoaching.com or jengode@jengodecoaching.com, or you can type in the chat.
So of course, my favorite quote of all time, the secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. That is Socrates, and Socrates is very wise and has withstood the test of time, because if we're focused on the things that we're not doing well, just like perseverating on the inner critic inside of our brain, we're not moving forward. However, if we pattern interrupt and we focus on everything that we want, whether it's gaining our next opportunity, whether it's showing up with confidence, whether it's whatever it is that we want to do, but when we focus on the new, that is when we devote our energies to growth and we actually see our results. So we would love to open up and into questions. We are here for you. Here is our information. Feel free to screenshot it. We are here for you, as you heard David said. Anyone who would like to have a little bit more in-depth conversation about today's content or other things that we have discussed, please feel free to reach out. We will schedule a 20-minute conversation to dive deep into what you're doing. And like he said, our first group coaching is this Thursday, June 25th, 5:30 to 6:30. It is going to be virtual. Someone asked if this is virtual or face-to-face. It's virtual because we are now we're in this pandemic situation. So it will be via Zoom, and it will be an interactive conversation. So what you experience today is a workshop. It is content-driven. It's like teaching or educating. But what coaching is an interactive discussion. And so there will be a conversation starter, but we will laser coach each and every one of the group participants on their unique challenges regarding however they're showing up. I've led multiple group coaching sessions before. They're all incredibly effective because you not only have us supporting you, we also pair up and have a lot of enhanced support and accountability. And many, many times when someone else is in the hot seat and we're laser coaching them around their confidence issues or their issues with showing up in an interview, you learn so much more by watching that laser coaching, because when you're in the hot seat, you're emotionally attached to it. When other people you're hearing, you see yourself and you can grow. It's just a very powerful method of coaching delivery, and helps everyone to grow together.
And so we had some feedback through emailing, and so the conversation starter time management was selected, but it is just that, a conversation starter. And so as we get going with the group, of course, Jen and myself will use the conversation starters to build the energy in the room, to facilitate you to ask questions. And then we'll do the laser coaching. And so really what it becomes, it starts off similar to a workshop, and where we're basically curating information to you in these workshops, but then it becomes particular to your situation. You may have specific questions or a specific situation, and through the group coaching, you'll find that you'll unlock solutions that maybe you hadn't considered before. So it's great if you're really, it's a great way to start. If you're thinking about coaching or you're curious about it, to experience it before maybe looking at a one-on-one and really diving deep into your personal growth.
So we'd like to open up if there are any additional questions with regards to confidence. How can we show up confidently? Any more exploration into the topics of today, we would like to encourage you. If you want to raise your hand, we're happy to bring you on audibly, or we will answer your question from the chat. I'm going to go ahead and.
So just wanted to see if you guys had any other questions.